All right, Ferry, we're back.
All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Can you hear me?
Motion to return.
Ferry, we need a motion to return.
We did. It was,
Oh, we already did.
Who was it?
I think it was Howard.
I second.
Howard and David?
Yeah, I second.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Go ahead.
All right. So for those that may or may not realize, we go into executive sessions, discuss critical, sensitive personnel information, and that's what we actually did at the beginning of this meeting. We were returning with some just amazing news, I think. But Chris, if you could take it from there.
Sure. Tonight, we're delighted to share that the Board of Education has found our next district leader from within. Our interim superintendent, Caroline Hernandez-Vidal, has had a significant impact on the district since she took the helm as interim superintendent this past summer. Ms. Hernandez-Vidal joined the district in 2015 as the Millbrook High School principal, was promoted in 2018 to assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction and pupil personnel services, and in 2021, she became the deputy. Having supported the district in so many different capacities, we believe that Ms. Hernandez-Vidal knows our district, how to move it forward, and how to enrich the educational opportunities for all of our students. As interim superintendent, Ms. Hernandez-Vidal has undertaken administrative restructuring in a manner that supports long-term sustainability. With the district's leadership team, Ms. Hernandez-Vidal has created a proposed budget for the 2023-24 fiscal year with the lowest administrative component and the highest program component in the last 5 years. Under her leadership, the district has also finished a 5-year strategic plan with involvement of key stakeholders across all interest groups. Please join your Board of Education in welcoming our new superintendent of Millbrook Central School District, Caroline Hernandez-Vidal. And as your first official duty, you get to congratulate the state champion.
I've heard that much more than talking about me. Thank you. So this is a very exciting night for me. For those of you who know me, I usually am just fine with words except talking about myself. It's truly an honor to be here in Millbrook. It's been the best 8 years of my life, my professional life. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I couldn't be more proud of the opportunities that students take here. I mean, such as yourself. I've been here for all 3 of these championships, so it's been super exciting to watch all of you exceed, and not just as athletes, but as students first, because our student athletes are students first. And each of you ladies displays excellence both in the classroom and on the court. And I know that many of you are not just basketball players, but you play other sports as well. So to be congratulated all around. And I'd like to congratulate your coaches as well and ask Mr. Pete, Mr. Z, if you want to come forward and present our student athletes.
All right, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say thank you to the staff here, administration, John with the custodial staff, taking care of the gym, all that. Teachers, Steve, my principal, always supporting me, but Rick, thank you. Coach Z, our JV coach, Colin Wolfhard, Steve Kamowski, all of them are, you know, stand-up guys that support the girls first. These girls are, if you look, only a few of us have privy to it, but every year they have the highest average of all the teams in the school. And a couple of years ago, last time I checked, I think it stopped with COVID. It was the highest average in the state for the basketball. So great student athletes, you know, best representatives we can find for the school, all scholar athletes. And I'll pass this over to Mr. Z for a little, but thank you very much. We appreciate all the support. It's been great all year and all the years I've been here. Anything else? Oh, no, I think too. thank you for coming out, supporting the students, going to the games, anything they need, the trips we went on, anything I needed. I'd ask from the administrators and they'd always back us up. Whether it was the bus down to Long Island, the snowstorm last year, which we could stay an extra night, but there's always little things we can do to improve on. But anything I asked for the team, you guys did that, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good bringing it, so. No, I just want to thank Coach for asking me last year to, help out, and I guess I picked a good time to do it. 'Cause it's been a good ride. I told the girls, I enjoy, I basically riding their coattails. They're the ones taking us on all those amazing runs and it's just, when you're going through it, and I say this to everyone, you're so stressed out, you're trying to prepare them as much as you can for that game. You don't get to enjoy it until it's all over. It's like, I wish we kind of could take a step back and enjoy it during the time, but he and I were up late at night, Coach. We're looking at game film, we're dealing with the Wi-Fi at this hotel we were staying at, and we're trying to watch the team we're supposed to play in the championships, and you're just stress, and the next day you're trying to get them all ready and going, so it's just, when it all happens, it's just finding like, that was so fun, but you wish you could kind of take back, and then they don't have any stress. They're running around as a group, dropping off these little gifts. They go around and collect random things from the hotel, and then they knock on your door, and they leave you these little presents at your door. They're just having a fun time, and so like you wish you could kind of have that youthful, experience. But I was blessed as a senior myself, winning here with the boys back in '99. And then to be with the girls these last 2 years has been an amazing run. So again, thank you for taking me on, and thank you everyone for supporting them, parents for, like you said, driving up to Binghamton to begin the first turn of the season. That's a long haul. Yeah, girls, nice job. That was fun. So,
On behalf of the board, thanks for representing Millbrook in such a positive light and being a role model for the younger students. I don't think this is something you guys will forget for a long time, so congratulations. And same to the coaches, same to the parents and fans.
Very good.
We want
All right.
to list by name for those that don't know who's here.
Okay.
I can do it if you want.
Okay. You're at one extra.
One accent.
Yep.
Okay, so I have, I'm gonna go in jersey number order. Hudson Heitman.
He's the one that.
Dennis here. Beth Bolton.
Oh, sorry.
Charlie Moore. Sarah Marchand. Natalie Fox. Ella Wilson. Lydia Cassatt. Taylor Heitman. And Emily Grassler. Congratulations, ladies, and to your parents as well. Do you want to get the team photo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
We don't.
I'm slowly getting in the
Carly, I'm gonna wait until.
Yeah, congratulations. Well done. Great stuff.
Are we good?
Yeah, I just have to do the appointment.
Yep.
Everyone's welcome to stay. I would understand if you did.
Scotty.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just gonna do the appointment.
Yep.
That's expected. All right, so just to do a quick appointment for Caroline. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Caroline Hernandez Vidala from the position of Deputy Superintendent, effective close of business of June 30th, 2023. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby appoints Caroline Hernandez Vidala to the position of Superintendent of Schools, effective July 1st, 2023 through June 30th of 2026, and authorize its president to execute an agreement with Ms. Hernandez Vidala dated April 18th, 2023, governing her terms and conditions of employment as Superintendent of Schools, as presented to the board at this meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Barry, it's all yours.
All right, just the next is the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to pull off the consent agenda? All right, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Okay, next up is pre-K presentation.
Okay, we're just saying, I'm not so fast. So who's gonna present?
You want to click or are you gonna do
I can click, they're gonna talk. I'm just here, introduce.
it? Should switch screen for players.
Can we introduce the teachers that are there?
Yes. All right, Carrie, I'm sorry you don't get them. Okay, so we are really fortunate, and thank you to the board for inviting us to come and do this presentation on pre-K. And a special thanks to our pre-K teachers who are here, who I've been bragging about. So thank you to Ms. Kale, thank you, Ms. Soriano, thank you, Ms. Cleveland, for all here. They put together a wonderful presentation, so I'm going to turn it over to them.
All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is intentional center time. This is our intentional center-based learning, where our centers are designed to support whole group instruction. And this means really that the units and the concepts that we teach during whole group instruction, they translate into our center. So an example of that would be our last unit being water. You know, our students were building in the block center. They had pictures of ice castles. They were building ice castles. And then we talked about how water can change from solid, liquid, and gas. In the math center, they were counting how many, they used droplets of pipettes, as you can see in one of the pictures, to grab some water, to suck it up into the pipette, and then 2 pegs of Legos, and then also with the penny, counting how many drops of water they could put on that penny until it spills over. And then for art, markers and water, as you can see in the picture on the far right, this student made a rainbow with markers, then sprayed it with water to kind of see what would happen to the picture when she sprayed it with water, to change it into whatever else it came out to be. And then we let it dry, and then the next day we would talk about what she noticed and what happened to her picture. So our centers are really designed around our thematic units and student interest. So we gather student interest a lot from our whole group instruction as well through our discussions that we have with them. And then we have science, math, literacy, fine motor, all of the different kinds of centers. We don't have them all open every week. They kind of interchange. So it's really nice to see a lot of change happening in our classrooms every week. And then lastly, our centers are choice-based and free-flowing. So for us, this means each of our classrooms has a choice board, and the students can pick where they would want to go. And then once the center fills up, they can see that it fills up.
ours is all a little bit different. For example, mine has like little dots, and once there's names under each dot, that center is full, and they can no longer go there. They need to choose another one. But at any time throughout their play, they can go back to the choice board and see what else has opened up, and they can freely move. They don't need to ask us. They can do it on their own. So it really is centered around them and what they're interested in doing and learning about that day.
I also just want to add off of the free flowing, it also has opened up a lot of opportunity to help them learn how to talk to each other. So we'll have like the hot center will be like whatever just opened, and they started to come to us and be like, Mr. Young or Ms. Tail, like, I'm so sad because I really want to go to the aquarium. And I'll say, well, then you should go to the aquarium and talk to your friends and say, I'm feeling really sad because I want to go here and you've been here for a long time. Can somebody switch with me? So it's really giving them the language to be able to talk to their peers. And then on the other hand, the peers have become very empathetic and been like, you know what, I will go change. I'll go pick a different center because all the centers are fun for us. So it's really given them like a nice understanding of how to talk to their friends, the other friends, how to understand how their actions make other people feel, and problem solving. Yeah, so just going off the free flowing of it, that's been really, really nice to see because they're very well spoken and able to kind of problem solve on their own without relying on us, which is very cool when they're 3 and 4 and 5. So for the next slide, how do we address our standards? We really rely on 2 main sources of information. So we do use Eureka Math in to fidelity, which we love, and we all feel very confident that our students' math foundation is absolutely incredible. I can't talk about it enough how like our students just feel so strong in their number sense and they're able to compose and decompose numbers. It's really amazing to see. Outside of Eureka Math, we use the New York State Early Learning Standards and the New York City Pre-K for All units as our 2 kind of like guiding lights in creating our units. So everything in the Pre-K for All New York City units are based off of the standards. So that is a full unit that is created, and we kind of take what we need and what we feel like will serve our students, and we modify from there. But everything in those units is linked back to the New York State standards. Something that we all really like about using those units is they're 4 weeks long. So last year we had kind of been doing units that were a week long. And it was like, we would do this for a week and then we would do this for a week. And it felt a little hectic and chaotic. Whereas this week we are immersed in 1 unit for 4 weeks. So it really gives the students so many different entry points, so much like an immersive experience in whatever that unit is. And so we plan instruction and purposeful centers that align with those standards. Something else, just as we're talking about the standards, our report card this year is completely aligned to the New York State Early Learning Standards. Last year, our report card wasn't quite rooted in anything, and this year it is mirrored exactly off of these standards. So at our first parent-teacher conference, we handed out a printout of these standards to parents, and it gave them all leaders to see what letter your child received. If you had a question, of course, you can talk to us, but you can also go back and look at the indicators and see, oh yeah, my child does struggle with this, or my child is great at that, and that's why they received the letter score that they did. So it's really nice to have a report card that feels very grounded and rooted in our standards. So as teachers, we know that we are meeting exactly what those students need and where they're supposed to be.
And then next we have, what does it look like? So in our classrooms, typically, we have the Eureka Math that we go off of, but then for our center time, we typically do some whole group instruction for about 10 to 15 minutes on the rug. And it's twice a day. And then right from that instructional time, we break up into the center-based learning. So based off of the pre-K unit for all, there's like an essential question for each theme. So right now we're working on plants. So the essential question for that is, how do plants grow and why are they important? And then every single week, there's a focus question for that specific week that goes along with the theme. So last week was the first week and the question was, what are plants? This week, our new question is, what do they need and where do we find them? So our whole group instruction is always based off of those questions. It might be reading a particular book that might teach them a little bit more about that theme or that topic. It could be a little whole group activity at the rug just to kind of get that background knowledge flowing and some interest going before they break up into the centers. And then with our themes, our centers, like Nicole was saying, go along with that. So our dramatic play centers right now are all transforming into a garden shop, and the kids love it because when we were doing the water units, we had been like coloring with markers and then spraying them. And I know some of us had made flowers that way this week. So they're bringing that water unit back into this, and they're creating flowers that they get to then use in the dramatic play center. And we have like seed sorting this week. Miss Ariana saying she's doing patterning with the different seeds in her room. We were talking about doing like a floral still life, so making a little bouquet of flowers, putting it in front of them at the center, kind of really focus in on it, and then try to recreate it with their own painting or own drawing. So it's bringing a lot of different things in. We try to keep the carpet time just at about 15 minutes, so we don't really lose their engagement, and then they can just go right into the centers, and they're so engaged and excited to go and just make those choices and learn more all on their own.
And to piggyback off of that, as you can see in the top right corner, my student, he decided one day he just wanted to try and write the word starfish. And the only letter that he missed is A, because in pre-K, we obviously don't teach our controlled vowels. But he did a great job sounding it out. And I feel like that just speaks to, his knowledge on letter sounds. And that's just something we're very much focused on this year. And then, this picture was taken weeks ago before spring break. And then today I'm sitting and working with him on labeling parts of a plant, because that was one of our centers, and he wanted to write, and he was writing out the word stem. And then he went stem, oh, just like starfish. So from weeks ago, he's making connections to beginning of words that sound just like what we're working on today, which is just really amazing to see them doing. So for the next slide, we have social skills and problem solving. So for us, this kind of does not look like us problem solving for them or giving them or talking for them with that specific explicit language. It more so looks like prompting them towards specific language that they could use together and asking guiding questions to help them problem solve independently. So if students are asking us a question because there's a problem that they've run into, we'll respond to them by asking what they think they could do to remedy the situation. So we'll kind of turn it around back on them to think deeper about what they could do instead of answering for them. And this really helps them to really figure it out and realize, oh, I do know how I could solve this situation. And it helps to build their confidence, try doing it on their own before coming to a teacher, and then they can independently do that stuff on their own, which is going into kindergarten, such a great skill for them to have. So that's all for that slide.
Exploring their environment. So the centers are designed around student interests and the thematic units. And again, we learn about that student interest through conversations with them, whole group, also in centers as we're walking around and conferencing with them. Students are given the opportunity to engage in creating centers. So whatever dramatic play unit we have, or dramatic play center we have, most of the materials in that center are student created. So for example, we have the garden shop opening up. I had my art center the past 2 weeks be creating flowers. So students put pipe cleaners and tissue paper, and they were tearing the tissue paper for some fine motor work, threading it onto the pipe cleaner and like knotting up the top and folding up the bottom. So now all of the flowers in my garden shop are student created flowers. So they are like just so excited to see what they have created in their center, and they can play with it. They have a different respect for it also because they created it. So they want to treat it really nicely. Another thing about exploring their environment, these dramatic play centers that we have set up are often things that they can find in their community or in a different community. For example, for our water unit that just passed, we had the aquarium. We obviously do not have an aquarium here in Millbrook. So I asked, who has ever been to an aquarium? There were some students who had not been there. So we took some time to show videos, to show pictures, read books about an aquarium. For the students who have not been there, they can then add to the aquarium and add to the experience. Also, the students who had been, I asked them to share what they saw there, what their experience was like, so they're learning from their peers. But like I said, if it's not something in their own environment that they have experience with, we kind of helped to provide an artificial experience as much as we could so that they felt like they had stake in it.
And then the next one we have keeping student interest.
Like we had mentioned before, we do this through whole group and small group instruction, which usually happens right before we break up into the centers. And this is a time where you can really like get to know the students better and their interests. For example, with the plant unit, we were reading, I think it was Seeds to Plants today. And one of the pages had like 6 fun facts about plants. And one of them mentioned how all of the pages in the book are made from trees. And they were like, so I explained how, you know, when you cut paper, it's all made from trees. And they were like, they were so interested in it just off of that one little fun fact. And they're like, well, how does it happen? How does that work? And I was like, to be honest, I'm not totally sure the process, but I'm gonna go and we're going to find some videos and some fun things you can learn more about it. So without having that whole group instruction with that book, I would have never even thought of bringing that into centers or into the classroom for them to learn more about. So just a little conversation through that instruction time, you learn a lot more about what's most engaging to them, what are they most interested in, and then it's just more engaging for them, it's something they're into. So like a couple of them there on the rug, that was one of our activities. It was sequencing stories, and then directly from that one, it was a gingerbread story around Christmas. We had iPads set up and they could listen to a couple different gingerbread character stories and then recreate their favorite gingerbread characters. So all of the whole group instruction really relates back to the centers. And some of the painting up there was painting with apples. We cut apples in half and just let them kind of stamp the apples around. Some of them, and it's amazing to see what they do too. They're all different. I had a couple that, you know, it's like paint colors all smeared together. Some of them are stamped. So it's a lot of just their own independence growing and confidence too with it. And the last thing that we're gonna touch upon is the mindful movements. So every month, I think, we have mindful movements, like for example, Miss Cleveland and I's kids both have mindful movements today, which is like this yoga program that comes in and works with our kiddos. So the top 2 pictures on the left and the right there are from today, actually, my kiddos doing some movements of yoga there and really enjoying that. And the instructor is right there with them, giving them those movements. And my kids just rave about yoga. They absolutely love it after coming back from it. So, and especially with this age, moving their bodies while also learning this much stuff is so important. So throughout the day, they're just constantly moving, aside from that short amount of rest time that we have. So for example, so for example, we have like songs for transitions, like cleanup songs, and then we use timers to help them kind of like realize like, oh, it's time to start cleaning up. So then they start cleaning and singing at the same time. As needed, as we notice they get a little bit wiggly. We will play movement breaks for them throughout the day, which consist of things like counting or something like that. That's educational, but also fun for them to do. You know, every day we do learning songs. We do letter of the week every day. And then for my class on Fun Friday, we do our alphabet with Jack Hartman on Friday. And they love doing that as well. And they just don't do all the movements with him as well. And then when I notice that my kiddos are maybe a little bit too much, I do rainbow breathing with them, which is another video that they really love. And it's painting the rainbow by raising their arms as they breathe in and then lowering them as they breathe out. And that really helps to kind of ground them and bring them back down to a nicer space for the indoor. But then for like indoor recess, I'll also play things like Cosmic Kids Yoga or Go Noodles, the indoor recess they have on there, to give them an option for moving, because it kind of stinks for them when we can't go outside. So giving them an option for moving while we're inside, but being able to do it at a nice voice level, they really love that kind of thing.
So they can piggyback off that too. I feel like it really helps them learn how to regulate their emotions too. Like I always say, oh, we're gonna do this so we can get our wiggles out. And they will ask, oh, can we just get wiggles out for a little bit first? Or like if they know, if they know there's just a little too much up here, like, can we just do a breathing one? So they now are to the point where they're even asking themselves for specific ones and they know what they need.
I'm just gonna piggyback because I've had the luxury of being in each of their rooms for different observations throughout the year and seeing exactly what they've talked about tonight come to life, and seeing the students truly negotiate and problem solve The space station was truly a big fave when I was in Allie's room, and this one little boy was like, but I really want to go in there, and she absolutely modeled that language for him, and she's like, so what could we do? What are some things that we could say? So she didn't give him the language, just, think about it, and he would be like, went back, and gave the language, and it was just like he was persistent but not upset. He was just wait a little bit longer, and then he went back. And they really have just demonstrated their willingness to solve problems, to ask really great questions, to take risks, and really explore their environment. When I was in Sammy's room, another student, when they were exploring water, had the idea to break down an ice cube, to take it outside and smash it on the blacktop. And there was no discouragement. She was like, okay, we'll make it happen. And so with an aid, he went outside and was able to demonstrate and report exactly what happened. So I feel like their ability to explore their environment is truly what's been happening in pre-K. And that leads me into this fabulous slide that thanks to our new superintendent put together for me today, because I wasn't aware that we have this data from last year. It just is really showing you for the students that we had in pre-K last year, and where, and you can hop in anytime, how they are currently doing based on what the dial looks like in kindergarten. And students that did not go to our pre-K or went to another pre-K, and how they're currently doing, and those three categories: motor, concepts, language in kindergarten. So I think initially when Mr. Hodgson asked, how is pre-K working? Do we know that it's making a difference? I just love, besides the anecdotal and my own evidence of looking at it, to go back to the measurement that we use as a district for screening, what we can show that our students who have experience. And I can't wait to see next year's data, because these three ladies have worked so hard this year to really overhaul their pre-K program. And I can't thank you all enough. And that's why I wanted to brag about you tonight, because they really trusted the process. They've been working with our consultant. They signed up for additional workshops with the consultant, and they've done so much extra work on their own. So a really big kudos to them as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, when we started planning for pre-K, years ago, well before the pandemic and whatnot, I never imagined that it would be what it is today. It's grown in such leaps and bounds even since just last year. Obviously we've grown a whole section, but also just the way in which the programming has grown. I know for you ladies, it's such a sense of pride to see your kiddos go on to kindergarten. Here are the real numbers, right? So we have 25 students who went to the MCSD pre-K and continued on to our kindergarten from last year. And those are compared with 11 students who had other experiences before entering kindergarten this year. And in terms of the level of readiness for motor, concepts, and language, that's the percentage of readiness there, which you can see far exceeds all of the metrics for students who either had a different pre-K experience or didn't maybe go to pre-K at all and entered kindergarten this year. So you will always have proud moments watching your students grow. This is a really proud moment for me, because one of the ladies up there is one of my former students. I had her in 8th grade. I was getting embarrassed here. So it is always a proud moment, especially when I watch her blossom as a professional, even the growth just from last year to this year. So I'm really proud of all of you. Some of the most reflective conversations after observations and just pop-ins. So certainly, new to Millbrook, but they definitely are veterans in terms of their abilities as teachers. So congratulations for what you've created.
Yeah, they're my showcase team.
Caroline,
Yes.
I asked you not to tell people that you were my teacher. I'm really proud of you guys. I'm proud of this program. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish. 23-24. What's on the agenda? What do you need? What are you teachers thinking about?
Going to flesh out the program. We started this
When did we adapt to this curriculum? I was here in the middle of September, so I'd say probably middle of October was the first introduction.
There were a few weeks in the beginning of the school year where we were not following this type of approach. So I think we are so excited starting the following school year to start our progression into pre-K with those half days that we had talked about, which served our students incredibly well this year, and then follow it right up when we are like diving into our curriculum with this type of curriculum. I love to tell anyone who will listen how socially and emotionally laid back our students are this year. Because I think they were able to problem solve so well in their room to talk to each other, they are just very relaxed and chill. I'm just happy to be here. So I'm excited to see the students next year, like I said, starting with this curriculum right away. Kind of how that even continues to grow. I also just have one little success story that again, I will tell anyone who listens. I have one student who, even currently during that whole group carpet instruction, it's clear to me now that he is listening and taking it all in. But he is a student who is a little bit more wiggly, he's a little bit more chattery. For example, during rest time, he'll just be like, Mr. Hannah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. His mind is just kind of always going. And in the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, this is more a behavior situation. Let's give him, the correct type of seating. Let's give him a fidget. Let's talk with mom and put him on a behavior plan. I have realized through this type of approach during centers, he is a workhorse. He is in his centers. He is like not bothered by anybody. He is going to town, doing whatever that center is designed for him to do. I also realized it's really interesting. Some of the centers are more loosely based on our unit, whereas others are very like clearly based. Even in that center, like sometimes blocks is just blocks for building. And this student would be like, Mr. Yana, look, I built a bridge when we were doing the water unit. And he's still like making those very strong connections, even when it's not necessarily spoken to him as like, this is the connection that should be made in the center. So just thinking about this type of approach is capturing him, and he's growing so much. Whereas if we had kind of a more student or teacher directed, you sit and listen and I was in a talking approach, I think that student would have become a behavior concern and also would have fallen through the cracks. But through this curriculum, he's able to he loves it. He's able to show everything he knows. And also, Debbie brought up a good point that he has had some social struggles this year, difficulties, and he's really come a long way in being able to navigate that by himself, which we've already talked about. But it's just always nice to hear about like a specific student who he is flourishing and blossoming.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you think that some of these kiddos come in at 3 years old, right? They're walking in at 3 years old and blossoming into students by the end of the year. They really are ready for kindergarten and, for their educational journey to begin. And that success is all you ladies.
And I think just more kudos for these ladies because they didn't specify it, and I feel badly I didn't because I'm so used to seeing them do this. That when you see the statistics or the minutes of 10 to 15 on the carpet and then it's center time, I want to make sure you all understand that's a work time for them. They are at every center rotating at a very methodical pace. And they are scripting notes, they are inferring things where they're asking students, they're informally assessing the students and they're tracking, they're asking them questions. Even nap time, they're doing the same thing. You can get anecdotal information like who's actually falling asleep, who's counting to 10 backwards, and who's reading a book, who's sitting quietly. The information that they gather while the students are being natural, inquisitive problem solvers in that environment, it's so much more because it's student driven than it is teacher standing in front of the classroom. There's so much data. It's not worksheets. It's actual conversations that they are having with our students. And I apologize, I didn't say it sooner, but that is happening. For every 10 minutes they're on the rug, there's 50 minutes that they're doing that. There is no downtime for these ladies. So I just want to make sure that that's well done.
For sure.
Something that I love, when we started working with a consultant, she kind of gave us the idea to assess students. The kitchen was open at that point, and she was like, instead of sitting there with a pen and paper and asking them, what letter this, whatever, she was saying, you can go to the kitchen and say, I only want to eat things today that start with can you find me something that starts with and they're like, nothing, and they're able to, that's how you can gain all that information of what they know, what sounds they know, what letters they know. So they just think that we're in there having fun and playing with them. Sometimes they ask us, what are you writing down? And they're really interested. I'm usually just, they're like, happy to, yeah, they're happy to give information. And those sheets that we track the anecdotal notes on also have what are the next steps. So on mine, I know ours are a little bit different. I just added to mine. So it'll have the notes that I take and then what are the next steps. So at the end of the day, I can sit down and think about where to take that specific student and where to continue to push that specific student.
And I think that we've had the opportunity to work with this consultant has been so
Amazing.
helpful and amazing, and we're so appreciative that we were given that opportunity because, I mean, she's just been so helpful to really help bring it all together. And
Yeah,
we learned so much from.
She answers all of our questions, makes us feel more at ease. I mean, the support this year that we feel is astronomical. I mean, Alicia O'Connell, she's been amazing in supporting us, helping us wherever we need, the consultant, the district, Amy. I mean, everybody has been just so wonderful, and we couldn't be more thankful for how things have turned out this year as opposed to last year. I say all the time that we like love our lives this year, so honestly, thank you so much for giving us this curriculum, this approach. I mean, we really do see it working for our kiddos in wondrous ways.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very good. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for our pre-K team? All right. And probably the biggest point, and when I asked the three teachers what they needed, they said nothing. They don't need any more money. They don't need any more equipment. I think that worked out well.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Thank you,
All right.
ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Caroline, thank you for finding that data. I mean, it's really speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a tough act to follow. Ours won't be nearly as exciting, but we are speaking through the proposed budget for the Board of Education to adopt this evening. So before we get started, I would like to thank the administrative team and all of our department leaders for their collaboration in building the 23-24 school year budget. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Ashley Berhans, our district treasurer, Elliot Garcia, our assistant superintendent, and Cheryl Sprague, my assistant. None of this would be possible to come together smoothly without them. And first up, Elliot will bring us through the timeline of how we've arrived here this evening.
We want to include a timeline in every budget presentation, just so folks know where we are in the process. Today is our last draft budget proposal. Hopefully the board is comfortable with what we present tonight and is going to adopt this budget. So you'll see there on the 418, board adopts proposed budget and approves tax report card. The property tax report card will be submitted by us to the state as soon as the portal opens, which is hopefully going to be tomorrow. We put in our request, so we've got a couple of days to get it in, but we want to get that in as soon as possible. And then we'll have our budget hearing at our next board meeting on May 2nd, where we'll welcome the public in. We're going to share another version of this slide deck, some modifications if necessary, but most of what we're going to share at the public budget hearing is going to be what we show tonight. In addition to that, we're going to make the full budget workbook available as part of our public budget documents. The board members should have that in their board docs this evening for your review. If you want to drown in 29 pages of numbers, please feel free to dive in. If you have any questions, we'd love to answer them for you.
So the opportunities that we're able to provide our students would definitely not be possible without the partnership of our community, our taxpayers, and of course, the unending support of the Board of Education. Millbrook Central School District is shaping our future generation of workers, leaders, and decision makers. And one day we'll pass the torch to them. So their preparedness is an enormous responsibility that we take very seriously. We've taken a very conservative approach to this budget. We focused on social emotional growth and learning. We will target learning loss and an increase in student mental health needs that remain in the wake of the pandemic. That's our primary focus when preparing this budget. Our proposed budget falls responsibly within the allowable tax cap and is funded in 3 parts. So school district budgeting is tripartite, meaning that all of the funds that are allocated fall neatly under 3 categories of allowable expenses. So first, our program includes any direct services provided to students, so teachers, aides, transportation, extracurriculars. And this is why we exist as a school system. So this is the largest part of our budget for sure. That is $25,851,945 or 76.04% of our budget as proposed for this coming year. Administratively, the costs are associated with how programs are run on a daily basis, the management, the business functions, the Board of Education functions, compliance with both state and federal reporting, as well as financial management and all the instructional administration of our schools. That part of the budget is 10.28% for $3,496,567. And then we have our capital component, which is where our programs run and the folks who keep our buildings functional and safe for our students and staff every day. So Mr. Mullins and his crew. And that is $4,650,861 or 13.68% of our budget. If you look at this pie chart, one of the things that we are most proud of is that our budget focuses on balancing the budget to reflect our priorities as educators. We're very proud that we've created a budget that includes the largest program and smallest administrative allocations in the past 5 years. This speaks to the mission of this administrative team with intentionality to put all of our students first and to build structures to support the programs that impact our students and our future. So if you look here, we have, like we said, the administrative portion of our budget has been reduced just to that about 10% mark, which is really kind of the goal. And we've been able to allocate 76% of our budget directly to programs that impact students. So we're really proud of that. And now Elliot will walk us through some of the revised expenses and revenues included in the 23-24 budget.
Like you said, that 10% is the goal a lot of districts can't hit. And if you were to ask them, 75% program, 10%, I mean, yes, please. Really. Okay, so our expense budget has gotten a little bit smaller since the last time we shared the numbers with you folks. We've managed to get the number barely, but just under $34 million. So I'd like to say we're 33 and change. It's 33,999,373. But it's not 34. So, what you'll see here is really just a summary of our expense categories as they break down in the budget. When you look at the workbook and those folks at home, when you see the public budget documents, these are the major categories that our expenses fall under. And you can see the percent changes year over year. One thing that I will tell you is some of these changes are somewhat substantial. And the reason for that is Ashley Burhans and I, working with our superintendent, have really tried to make the budget make a little bit more sense in a narrative way. So like, for example, I'll use Mr. Mullins as an example, because he's sitting right across from me. We had some things that were coded to maintenance expense that are really custodial operations expenses. So you know, when you look at the workbook, you'll see a big chunk of reduction in one category and an increase in another category. It's just really moving that money from one place to another. So when you look at the overall growth of the budget, it's good to look at that bottom line figure because some of the categories this particular year are going to shift with a little bit more substance than you would expect year to year, just because we're really fine tuning our approach and trying to put things where they belong instead of where they've always been historically, if that makes sense. So that's what you can see there. Our baseline, I'll just speak to the bottom line numbers. Last year or the current year 22-23 budget is $32,656,404. We're proposing a budget for next year 23-24 at $33,999,373 or a difference of growth of about 1.3 million or 4.11% total budget year over year. Now, as we have expenses, we also have to balance that with revenues. So this next chart that we're going to show you is the revenue side of the budget, and I will say proposed revenue for those that have been watching the news and watching our state politics unfolding in front of us. The state just executed an emergency order to extend their budget planning process through April 20th to keep the state operational. With all the things that are happening in Albany right now, all the machinations they're in, part of that is approving our aid, so that will affect our revenue numbers. What you'll see is what we anticipate the total tax levy to be on that top line. That's what Carolyn was referring to as our tax cap. We are within the bounds of the state mandated tax cap, so our proposed tax levy for next year would be $26,253,005. A big chunk of what comes after that is different versions of our state aid. And so some of those numbers may fluctuate as the state legislature processes what they're willing to share with all the public school districts in New York. We're hoping that these numbers don't shrink significantly, but we are prepared to react accordingly if they do. What you'll see at the very bottom, before the total revenue or before the total expense line, total revenue line, you'll see fund balance appropriation. That's money that we have in the current year budget that we're willing to allocate towards next year. Every year, we tend to take a little bit of the money we have left over and put it towards next year's budget. We do use that number to balance our budget. So we want to have enough revenues to cover our anticipated expenses. I will say with full disclosure that a part of our budget planning process is to plan for contingencies that may or may not occur. For example, we tend to use the example of special education children that are placed in a high cost program. At any given time, a family can move into our district. Those children that have existing needs that have to be met immediately. And so we have to be prepared to respond, react, and fund the educational program for those children under federal law. And so we have to have budget allocations prepared for that. Sometimes they happen and sometimes they don't. When we don't exhaust all of those contingencies, we are left with a fund balance that we're able to use for a number of things. One of them being appropriating it towards next year's. The one being funding our reserve funds, as you've heard, the end of last year, a couple years back, we established our capital reserve fund. Over a number of years, we've been able to feed that slowly with some of our fund balance left over. So I would expect at the end of this school year, Mr. Hernandez and I will be coming to you and sharing a fund balance management plan, which would include any dollars beyond our anticipated 1.8 million allocation in terms of what funds we can or create to help manage that process. By law, we're restricted to a 4% unscheduled fund balance. So the things that are not allocated for a specific purpose, we can carry a 4% balance. Anything beyond that 4% has to be parked somewhere for some purpose or intent. Okay, so our revenues are expected to grow just under 7%, but again, we won't really know that for sure until the state legislature finalizes their budget.
And just some highlights of changes for the 23-24 budget, some of the enhancements that we'll be making to student programming, one of which is to grow our 5th grade team back to 3 sections, so that will require an elementary teacher. We will also be moving the funding of the school psychologist out of grants and into the general fund. We have this position has already existed last year and this year. That's the 4th psychologist at Elm Drive. But we're going to move this into the general fund so that we can retain the position in perpetuity. We also will be utilizing some foundation aid set aside, assuming that comes through. We will be using it for high impact tutoring, but as Elliot said, we don't know for certain what the aids will be that we will get, but we have backup plans because we prioritize this and we believe this to be important. So we do have a backup plan in the event that that doesn't come through. We also will be funding 1 custodial worker. This custodial worker position during the day was originally created with COVID relief funds to ensure that students returned safely back to in-person instruction. And we will be retaining that position going forward as well by moving into the general fund. This person will assist primarily with food services and making sure that they have all of the support that they need in making sure that the food gets between buildings during the day and whatnot. Also, you will notice that we have additions to the budget for $105,000 of interactive display boards for the classroom. We do have $70,000 in a grant that is COVID relief funds as well, earmarked for the purchase of those display boards, and we also have 25,000 in the general fund. So it really kind of puts us ahead with being able to purchase a large quantity of those boards now, and then we would obviously create a responsible replacement plan that we can plan for year over year, which makes it a lot easier for the district to ensure that we have updated equipment over time. We also have $85,000 in facilities equipment, which is one maintenance truck with a plow and additional cleaning equipment. And then we will also be retaining the independent investigator for DASA and anti-discrimination investigations. Some of the things that we had mentioned as being really important to us was to realign the budget to make sure that the money that was already included in the budget is properly located within our budget. So you will see some reallocations of existing funds within the budget to fund a registrar stipend, a data reporting stipend. We had created a teacher on special assignment a couple of years back for special education, and also a summer stipend associated with that for chairing special education meetings. That became a supervisor of PPS position, so that is full-time and within the budget. And then we also have moved administrative salaries within the budget so that they are associated, like Elliot had said, where they belong. So previously Elliot was in charge of, facilities and technology, and that has now moved to business and personnel. The previous assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent position was split between special education funds and general education program funds. So that was moved, in its entirety to the program side of the budget at this point. So all of those things already exist in the budget. It's not additional money necessarily, it's just moving them to where they belong. And then there is the possibility of a contingency budget, which we do have to discuss, though we hope we never have to use it. That there are some rules around contingency budgeting. So this is if the voters were to not approve our proposed budget. And basically a contingency budget means that the Board of Education can adopt a new budget with a tax levy no greater than the previous year and within the tax calculation. So for the 23-24 school year, if that were to happen, we would need to decrease the proposed tax levy by $834,191. There are specific parameters that would come with that. For example, the administrative portion of the budget may not exceed the percentage of the administrative components in the last approved budget or the most recently defeated budget, not including the capital components, and whichever is lesser. So there's basically two options. It's the last approved percentage, or it's the percentage of the defeated number, whichever is lesser. That's what we would have to do. That's the parameter, and it excludes the capital component. So Elliot is actually going to give us a breakdown of what that would look like in the event of contingency, and just a brief example of some things that might have to be cut as a result.
Yeah, so for those of you that have really good memories and remember the three components from the first couple of slides, you'll see that the admin number has changed in our contingency budget. And the reason for that is, as Caroline said, it's the lesser of the two. So in our case, because the admin component is shrinking in our proposed budget versus our current year, that would be the number we have to stick to in the contingency budget. So that number doesn't change, but there are things that have to come out. So there's mandatory exclusions to a contingency budget. We have to remove all equipment out of the budget, which in this case comes out to $250,000. All salary increases for non-union staff are also off the table, and that comes out to about $44,000. We're still short. We were just at 296. We're going to lose about $800,000 in revenue, so we have to find another $500,000 of things to cut, and those become, I'll say, moderately discretionary cuts that Caroline and I sat down for I don't know how many hours going through every single line of the budget, looking at what we would potentially be able to do without it. That's a really tough discussion to have. And to be quite honest, we came up to about $408,000, and that's like we couldn't go any further than that without really crippling our instructional program. So what you're gonna see here is a contingent budget calculation with a $702,000 reduction. We're still short of that $131,000 of total lost revenue by not being able to increase the tax levy. So what would happen in that case is we'd have to look at if there is any available fund balance that we could additionally allocate, or we go back to the well, we have to find another $131,000 worth of things to cut, and to be quite frank, that's gonna probably be people one of the things, because we cut all the things we could before we cut the people, and even some of those cost savings in that 702 would result in positional elimination. So as I said, we don't really want to think about a contingency budget, but by law and responsibly, we have to calculate it and propose it accordingly. And this is our budget at a glance. So you'll see this in the budget newsletter. A lot of people just say, you know, cut to the chase, give me the nitty gritty. Well, here it is. Our 22-23 budget is $32,656,404. Our proposed 23-24 budget is $33,989,373. A difference of $1.3 million or 4.11%. The tax levy, which is and includes other sources of revenue, all that state aid we talked about that we're still not sure about. But the tax levy, what's going to affect our homeowners and taxpayers is going from $25,418,000 to $26.2 million, a difference of $834,000 or 3.28%. So it's another number that we're relatively proud of. We're able to stay in the tax cap and keep a rather conservative tax levy increase given a CPI increase or inflation increase projected upwards of 8% this year. So we're doing the best we can to fight inflation and keep our tax levy and our budget managed.
Questions? And don't forget to vote.
Save the date.
I'd like to have a comment first. When you talk about contingency, which luckily, thanks to the parents and the taxpayers of this district, the budget has not been going down in since I've been on board and a long time before that. So thank you to the community, all taxpayers, parents. Secondly, when you talk about it, if it did happen, we need to go to contingency. We would find all kinds of creative ways before we would ever to get rid of any employee in this district. And I remember when I first started here, and they used to draw up a layoff list because of this, and I don't want to see those days come again. We would do away with postage and go online with things. The people are our most important asset for teaching, keeping this district running. So I just wanted to bring that forward as a comment.
There's no doubt about it. If it came to that unfortunate circumstance, it would come to a point where we would have to make some really difficult decisions. And that's why we try to be, you know, conservative and responsible in the budget that we're putting forth, where, like you said, the majority of our budget goes directly to educating children.
I just wanted to comment on that, which Elliot eloquently said. I mean, that since 2019, it's down almost 2% for the administrative budget and up almost like 3% for programming. And you would think it would be the opposite after so many years. So that's just really impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for presenting it also in a very understandable fashion. Since I've been here, this is probably one of the most understandable ones. So thank you.
Thank you.
And it's important to understand that, you know, so much of this is contractual. So much of this is, you know, we all know what the price of fuel oil did to us. We all know what the price of electricity has done to us. We have to buy our food for our cafeterias. You know, we run a really big house, and there's so much of this budget that is just beyond our, not control, but beyond our access. I mean, we have to pay insurance. We have to pay all these other things. So really nice job, everyone. And I just hope parents come out one way or another, not just parents, but our citizens come out one way or another and vote. Okay, any other questions? All right. Excuse me. Okay. Next is financial warrants. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
David, second.
Okay. Comments, questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right. Next, under new business is the approved proposition 1. I'll let you guys read it because I can't.
The action. Upon this recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, a motion to adopt the following resolution be it resolved that the board hereby adopts the following proposition 1 for the presentation to the voters at the annual meeting. Shall the Board of Education of the Millbury Central School District be authorized to expand the sum of $33,999,373 for school district purposes for the 2023-2024 school year, the budget, and to levy the necessary tax therefore.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Howard. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? All right. Next one is the property tax report card, Chris.
Upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, a motion to adopt the following resolution be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the 2023-24 property tax report card as presented.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay.
There's a lot of reading tonight, right? I think you're faking this call.
I tell you, man, if I could get away with it here a little bit longer. The next one is the modified corrective action plan. You want to run that one, Chris?
Sure. On the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, a motion to approve the following be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the corrective action plan as created by the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Personnel and authorizes the Assistant Superintendent to file the same with the Office of the State Comptroller and the State Education Department.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? All right. Public comment question. Oh, sorry. Nope. Never mind. Went too far. Letter of resignation.
No, number 5, approve. You might, were they added recently?
No, we have a second
Oh, I
corrective
didn't-
action plan.
Yeah.
I didn't see the
Number-
second one. Sorry.
It's number 5 under G. It's approved modified corrective action plan. Upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, a motion to approve the following be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the corrective action plan as created by the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Personnel and authorizes the Assistant Superintendent to file the same with the Office of the State Comptroller and the State Education Department.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
One quick one. We approved a very, very similar letter a few months ago. are the only changes in here to add dates?
That's correct.
Is that requirement that?
The requirement was for more specificity in the timeframe, so we had to add dates to it.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Any against? Letter of resignation, Chris?
Recommendation, interim superintendent of schools, a motion to adopt the following resolution, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Rana Monahan from her position as school nurse effective April 21st, 2023.
Questions, comments? Oops, sorry, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any questions or comments?
Not a recommendation I wanted to make, for sure. She'll be sorely missed.
I'm assuming well, never mind. No, we can talk about that at some other point. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right. Board president, vice president report. Two things. I was supposed to go to the Millbrook board meeting, but as you can imagine, I didn't go. I let them know in advance. Tim had the meeting anyway, and a lot of the questions seem to come back to Elm Drive, that the traffic issues at Elm Drive. I did talk with John Rudy, who was, I don't know, he was the president or the vice president of the board when the high school was built, about were promises made. I have those answers. I told Tim I would attend the next board meeting. I think it's in the middle of May sometime. But just wanted to let you know I didn't make that. The other thing is the Dutchess excuse me. Damn it. At the Dutchess County School Board, one of the board members from the Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse came forward. They're looking for a new board member. They work across the county, across the Mid-Hudson Valley, really. I think it's one meeting a month, but it's to really, and they're hybrid. You can do Zoom, but they're really focused on programs, recommendations. They want somebody that's involved with schools, but also involved in school-age children. So I just wanted to throw this out to the board. If there's anyone interested, I'll forward you all. There's a form you have to fill out to apply for it, and then they vote on it at some point. But I'll send that out. But other than that, I think that was all I had.
I do not have anything, so I will hand it over to Caroline.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you again. I truly am humbled at the opportunity to lead this district into the future. I don't do well on the spot, so before I didn't have much to say, but I do want to say thank you very much. And I do appreciate your confidence in me and the support. So as the ladies had mentioned, speaking about pre-K, Tracy Tyler is the consultant that has been working with them on their programming. And so they've been working specifically with pre-K, grade 2, and then grades 3 and 5 at Alden. Yes. Working through the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. So really talking about, we have these standards, we have these expectations, and what does that look like in the classroom? How does that translate for our students? And really making age appropriate and developmentally appropriate opportunities for students to learn in the areas of reading and writing. As you well know, the ELA tests for the New York State assessments will begin tomorrow. It is computer-based testing. We know we've discussed in the past some of the concerns about there being computer-based testing. But I do want to say that we've had students express that they're actually excited to take the computer-based test. So we were a little bit surprised to hear that, but I think sometimes we forget that they are digital natives. We are not. So they're much more comfortable in that arena than we are in some cases. Quarter 3 report cards will be available for parents this week. We had IBM engineers visit our elementary schools and work with students about engineering and exploring some STEM activities. Dr. Watkins is currently, to sort of loop back to what the pre-K folks were saying, Dr. Watkins is planning the allocation of grant funds for more training in the area of literacy for the 23-24 school year. And some of that will be funded out of COVID recovery funds. And those are targeting, learning loss that is a result of the COVID pandemic. So we are really trying to capitalize on that in areas that directly impact students, like making sure that we have, the highest quality of instruction in all of our classrooms. In terms of the capital outlay project, the high school secure vestibule phase 2 is substantially completed over spring break as planned. The administrative team has also met with Train Technologies about a potential partnership for an energy performance contract. And that would be in tandem with our proposed November capital project. The district safety members are planning for reunification and tabletop exercises for staff. You may remember last month we talked about the tabletop exercises that the district emergency response team had gone through, and now we're going to roll that out for all of our teachers during faculty meeting time, so that they all have experiences of sort of rapid fire scenarios and how would you respond, and really benefiting from the conversations of hearing how other people might think through those situations. Just because you don't have the answer doesn't mean that somebody in the room doesn't have the answer, which would help you if you were ever put in a situation where you had to respond to an emergency. Frank Ulieri from Regional Safety at Hudson Northern Westchester BOCES is going to be training first student drivers on emergency preparedness as well. One of the things that we know is that there are certain segments of our staff and also our contracted staff that don't necessarily attend all of our trainings. So we're trying to remedy that one group at a time to make sure that no matter who is in charge of supervising your children, that they have proper safety training to make sure that they can keep your students safe and secure wherever they are on campus or en route to or from. Coming soon to Elm Drive is a very exciting return of Grandparents' Day that will be on April 28th. Ms. O'Connell is planning our annual Arbor Day tree planting as well with Mr. Herzog, and that will take place in front of the Village Hall. Alden Place of celebrating Earth Day with activities around recycling, energy conservation, and cleanup, so that we can build an environmentally conscious generation of students. We also have the NISMA Festival, which is set for April 28th and 29th. There will be a number of participants from Alden Place there. Mr. Cabello is working with the E&L department and planning a really exciting World Cup themed community night for early May. We encourage everyone to participate, and there will be more details coming in the coming months. I'm sure Mr. Stipe will talk about this, but there is a career fair planned at the high school on April 28th. And we have had some very successful parent meetings for upcoming field trips at the middle school. Mr. Cabello was very appreciative of the folks that were able to attend and have that face time with them before their students head off to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. respectively. And the middle school will be recognizing their students of the quarter next week. We have successfully adopted the proposed 23-24 school year budget, so we're very excited about that. And at Elm Drive in student services, Ms. O'Connell has had their blue ribbon blazer kickoff with the definition of responsibility, talking students through what responsibility looks like and how they can display that in the building. Ms. O'Connell has also worked with the facilities department. She's very appreciative of Mr. Mullen's partnership in creating the sensory room, getting that up and running, and also preparing the blacktop for the sensory stencils that they're going to be putting outside. Sensory movement is so incredibly important for our students. As you heard the ladies talk about earlier, some of it is just to understand and to use their senses actively so that they can create complete more complex tasks, but it also supports language development, problem solving, cognitive growth, and fine and gross motor development and socialization for sure. At the high school, the Northeast Community Center will be here for a second school to work introduction on April 20th. And Grace Smith House will be returning on April 27th for a teen dating violence workshop called In Her Shoes, where students can basically role play based on the experiences of real teens with some difficult scenarios involving sexting, teenage pregnancy, homophobia, and stalking. And they're able to work through choices about relationships, scenario by scenario, reading about interactions with their dating partner, family, and friends. If your child is interested in that, they would need to sign up, and you can contact either the high school or Ms. Holzberg for more information. And that is all I have for you, unless you have any questions.
I have one comment and one question. So the students, there's a few, I don't know how many from Alden Place attending this month, the 28th and 29th, but I just wanted to throw out that there's also 6th through 11th graders. There's about 25 of them.
Oh, yeah, I
Also,
don't know.
that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. You've got one 11th grader and a handful of 9th and 10th graders, and a bunch of 6th, 7th, and a couple of 8th graders. So with that, that,
It's exciting.
you know, that's a lot representing Millbrook. Yeah. And then, oh, I wanted to ask you, is the community circle happening?
Yeah,
This
I
Thursday? Okay, and what is that?
The
going to be
topic
about?
of community
Yeah.
circle is we're talking about grant funding.
Okay,
Yep, and sort of how grants have been spent this year and then planning for next year because we haven't built those budgets yet. So as we get our allocations in, we'll kind of have some ideas that folks want to share that we can prioritize.
and that'll be that's webinar, right?
Yep.
Or, yeah, okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Anything else?
That was
All
it.
right, John, you want to move to your report?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Before I get started, I'd just like to thank all the custodians and all the maintenance workers for all their hard work over the past month, and especially during spring break. They've got some great projects done. Also like to welcome back Mr. Tompkins. It's great to have him back on the team. He's a great asset to the district. Also, we just hired 2 custodial subs. They've done a really great job. I think we put on the board tonight, Mr. Lamont Ragland and Wilfredo Milano. It's really great to see some guys coming into the custodial sub positions from the struggle. I've been here 4 years almost, and these are the most subs that we had in a long time. So, okay, to start off with the maintenance reserve work, an update on that. The home drive air compressor has been installed. The high school air conditioning chiller system, parts of order. They keep contacting the contractor. Hopefully they'll be in by the end of the next week. Facilities and technology departments are preparing to install new vape sensors in middle and high school restrooms. The capital outlay project, the high school secure vestibule phase 2 project, construction was substantially completed over spring break as scheduled. The contractors did a really great job, kept an eye on them, and everything they did was 100% great. The sanitation pickup schedule had to be adjusted. The price increase they wanted to raise in a month was astronomical. So I just adjusted that, I tweaked it a little bit. I've been keeping an eye on it, and it seems to be working out well. And it's a big savings for the district. Spring break projects. So all the schools, we purchased mulch and put mulch along the outside areas in front of the schools to make it look nice and pretty for the principals and all the parents to see. Elm Drive, we painted room 25 different colors. That's what Caroline was talking about. The sensory room, it was really great for the kids. In high school, we shampooed all the carpeted areas. We painted room 218. We had a teacher willing to get it done. Don't want to break it, took all the stuff off the walls. We painted it, put all the stuff back together, and we was ready to go when school reopened. Up at the athletic field, we built up the pitcher's mound. The maintenance guys had went for a class on how to build up the pitcher's mound, and guys were able to do it. First time since I've been here 4 years, and both the baseball field and the softball field. We got a big crowd out there today. We had rain yesterday, and the fields are doing great. And the guys really maintain it well, so this way parents can enjoy home games here in Millbrook instead of going to the town or something else. And we started painting the lockers in the middle school. That was Mr. Albert Tompkins. So great to have him back. That's, painting the metal lockers, matching them to all one color. It's really great job. So Albert got that done. It's really great seeing the paint back in his hand. At Elm Drive, the team installed a new dishwasher hot water booster. That job usually be sent out to contractors or something, but we were able to do it. We assembled some picnic tables for the outside areas. At the high school, we rebuilt one hot water pump. Another job, just for an example, that would be usually subbed out, but we did it in-house ourselves. We serviced all the unit events and we're maintaining the athletic field for all spring sports. At the middle school, we serviced all the unit events. We serviced 8 hot water pumps in the boiler rooms. We installed a drop ceiling and LED lights in the gas to social worker's office. And flusher on the urinals in the boys' bedroom, the second floor. At Alden, we repaired a leaking coil in the band room. We painted and installed drop ceiling and LED lights in the school food manager's new office. We repaired a broken 2-inch water main valve in the morning before school started. We had to shut the water down, and we were able to repair that within half an hour and get the school back up and running before school opened. We installed the window blinds in the principal's office and the general office. And we repaired most of the potholes in the roadways leading to Alden. There's a lot of potholes, and we've been patching them ourselves. Maintenance shop, the guys serviced all the lawn equipment, replaced blades, changed oil, and all our equipment. Spring and summer, coming summer. That's about all I got. Is that showing up, Perry? Go ahead.
You're making sure Albert doesn't get on the ladder, right?
100% at home, sit in the chair.
All right, very good. Any questions for John? All right, thank you, John. Where am I? All right, principal's report, Eric.
Good evening, thanks for the opportunity this evening. It's hard to believe that we are in the 4th marching period of the school year. With AP and Regents exam right around the corner. As a result, my first topic with respect to curriculum work is that our teachers and students are really focusing on these upcoming exams, our final benchmark assessments, and just finishing off the school year on a positive note, academically, socially, and emotionally. In terms of conduct and safety, we continue to work with Grace Smith House with grade level workshops. We had Thomas Grimes from New York Finest at the high school for a very powerful presentation. As Mr. Hernandez shared, Grace Smith House will return next week for voluntary workshops with parental consent. Next, prior to our students meeting with our counselors, we held our first elective fair. That was very well received. Special thanks to Dr. Watkins for putting this idea for high school. Definitely glad we did it. Teachers were able to give all of our students some insights to their course electives. So when they did meet with Mr. Chanowski and Mrs. Prince for scheduling for next school year, they had a better understanding of our elective offerings. Last week, we held an exciting spring pep rally for our spring athletes. It was very hot, but we had a lot of fun. Very hot. This week, we have our drama performances, Mean Girl, on Friday and Saturday night at 7 p.m. and Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Also, this coming Friday afternoon, we are going to have an in-school sneak preview with our middle school and high school students. Our kids always really look forward to that, so that's going to be exciting to kick that off. Additionally, spring sports are off to a great sport: baseball, softball, track and field. And next Friday, as Mr. Hernandez said, at 10 a.m. in the high school gymnasium, we have our annual college and career fair with, at this time, over 70 representatives and possibly more. I know Mr. Mullins just left, but I just wanted to thank him for all of his help in preparations for next week's event. And then just lastly, I know many were already discussed, but you can see our upcoming events over the next few weeks. Any questions?
I have two. One is, I'm wondering, is E-Week or E-Day, like, does that ever occur at the high school? Engineering day?
We
or
had that
something?
with IBM. We
Yeah,
haven't had that in a few years. I don't know if that was pre-pandemic or why that ended. That's a good question. No, we don't have that anymore.
okay,
I'll follow up with Ms. Watts. I know she's been.
okay. And then can you update us on the internship program? Will that return next year or different thoughts?
So no, we made a determination a few years ago, post-pandemic, when we tried to re-engage with internship. We had a really difficult time with people accepting our students coming for in-person experiences. So we had made a determination at the board that we were going to pass and no longer have that opportunity for our students. Is that something that you'd like to see us bring back?
Oh, I think when I came aboard on the board, it was not happening, but I thought that was just because of due to COVID, but.
Now, there were all kinds of problems.
Yeah, if it
with-
was,
between the students, the scheduling, and then the scheduling of the businesses and not about business. If you want to bring it up as something to discuss down the road, of course, you can bring it up when things see.
I don't have a
Oh,
personal.
you don't care either way.
I don't feel strongly either way. I
Okay.
just was curious because I did.
There is a history to it.
Yeah, there is a history.
All right, everybody good?
There's no questions from the public.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
I lost where's my thingy? All right, next is questions, comments from the public.
There's no questions, public.
Okay. Do they have the enrollment report? Just for your information. The series report, same thing. Anything from the PTO, Dina?
Yes, so as pre-K instructors, we're really excited about the mindful movements and yoga at Elm. We are having it come to Alden for the first time as a PTO sponsored event on April 27th for all grades at Alden. So we're excited to have them have that experience. And then we have some events coming up. May 16th through May 19th is going to be the book fair at Alden. May 24th to May 26th is the book fair at Elm. We are also collecting donations via QR code or making a check to Millbrook PTO or cash in an envelope to your school's main office for staff appreciation days that are going to be carried out weekly throughout the month of May for each of the schools, as well as for first student bus drivers. We were really successful. We raised a lot of money last year. Lunches, little goodie bags for all of our wonderful staff and teachers. And coming up, we are also going to be starting the PTO sponsored high school scholarship, for $1,000. So we'll have more information of that coming up. And for more information, you could look at the Facebook page. It's MCSB PTO in the know with the Millbrook PTO. It's a little bit lengthy.
Wow.
Yes. You have any questions?
Thank you, Dina.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, MEF.
Sure, not much different than last update. We could still use another several trustees, if anyone is interested there, anybody knows anybody. We happen to currently have no men on our MEF board, so this is an observation. A little more diversity would be great. So, if you know anybody who you think would, even if they haven't expressed interest, feel free to recruit, send them along. And have funded, I don't think they've been created yet, these signs for the signs for the graduating seniors, so we're excited to do that.
Yeah,
To have
I
done
shared
that.
the file with Christina for the.
Wonderful, yeah. And so that's super exciting. We have also our president, Christina Myers, was able to uncover additional funds through Berkshire Taconic. I think this is close to $32,000. Am I
Just
correct?
over, yeah.
Caroline, right, to be used. And the district is looking into what you guys want to do with that. I think it'll surround literacy.
Yeah, some of them are, it's required, some of the funds are required to be used on targeting literacy.
Yep.
So Amy's been working with Christina and Berkshire to do that.
Yeah, so that's amazing. That's in addition to the roughly $25,000 that we shovel out each year. So super excited about that. And of course, at the end, I always have to remind people of our Taste of Millbrook to come. September 23rd, 23. So.
Oh, and something interesting about Taste of Millbrook, I worked, I had a meeting with Jason from BOCES, the superintendent of BOCES. And since it's early in the fall, we were concerned about being able to get enough Millbrook students to volunteer. So I reached out to Jason to engage not just our students, but other county students who are in the culinary program, the security program, and the graphic design program, to be able to engage them, graphic design leading up to promoting and doing some of that. And then the security folks, some of which are our students as well, will help with things like parking and checking in guests and tickets and whatnot. And then our culinary students, but also some other culinary students from the county, will have the experience of working with an authentic audience to plate, properly plate some of the food vendors' donations, and then be able to pass orders and whatnot. So, yeah, it'll be an exciting opportunity for them.
Yeah, just be on the lookout because it will sell out, and I think we can only support about 400 attendees. So when the tickets go on sale,
they'll move fast.
They will move fast. Yeah. That's it.
All right, very good. Any questions for Chris or Dina? All right, the future agenda items, I mean, the next, basically month and a half are pretty much the focal point of our year. I think I sent you guys an email that there was 3 people for 2 seats on the board. One of those people has withdrawn his whatever, and so there's only 2 people for 2 seats as far as I can tell. But public hearing is second, vote and election on the 16th. So let's, hopefully everybody gets out and votes. I don't think we need the second executive session. Is that right, Caroline?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So we'll delete that. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. So moved. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? All right. Good night, everybody. Caroline, congratulations.
Congrats,
Thank you.
Caroline. Feel better, Perry.
I'll see you too, Jen.